This is the fourth video in the set about building a website from scratch. We've been working in this folder here called Video Website that's on our desktop. You need to have watched the first 3 videos to understand this one. And we have 3 HTML pages and we have some assets in here. Now, we've been using brackets to work with these pages, so I'm just going to go and open up brackets and show you brackets. In fact, I might already have it open down here. No, it's opening up now. Okay. So here's our 3 pages in brackets. Now, we've got to a stage where we started off with, first video was page 1, second video was page 2, third video was page 3. And in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to clean up all of those pages, okay? And so we start off just by looking at, here is a preview of the third page, the page 3, which is this one. And if you look, if I move my mouse up and down, you see this red background behind it. The picture scales with the screen, which is fantastic, it's good, but the page is really not perfect. And if you have a look, there's the transparent background here, but the writing is a little bit transparent as well. We've got yellow buttons here, but if I hit the home page and go to page 1, then we've got green buttons with white backgrounds, and they're at the bottom of the page. And in fact, if we go to page 2, then we've got yellow buttons in the middle of the page. There is no consistency. There's no consistency amongst the 3 websites, right? So there's page 1, there's page 2, and then there's page 3, right? And so we can see the progression, but we haven't got any consistency. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean all of this up right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my website creation folder, which I said at the start was called Video Website. And I am going to make a folder. So on a Mac, Command-Shift-N, and I'm just going to write old. I'm just going to call it old, and I am going to hold down Option, highlight these 3, hold down Option, copy them and put them into the old folder. Okay, so what I've got essentially is a backup of those 3 pages, so that if we make any mistakes on these, then we can always go and address that. We can always go back and go back to where we'd saved, and we'd be right to go. Now, what I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to do is just show you these 3 pages. And if we have a look, here's page 1, and we talked about tags being in pairs, and then we've got our header, our title, our style. Now, we've got our style all here in this page. Then when we go to the second page, we've got a different set of style. And then when we go to the third page, guess what? We've got a different set of style with more details. And I don't want to do that. We want to introduce a thing called a cascading style sheet, which is essentially one style that is consistent across all of the websites, okay? So to do that, we're going to create a new file. So we're just going to say File, New, and we're in brackets. And then we're going to say File, Save As. And we're going to save this file into, not into there, onto our desktop, into our video website, and I'm going to call this file mayland.css, just because that's what I want to call it. Right? You can call it whatever you like. Most people call it style.css, but I'm going to call it mayland.css. So I save that into there, and now brackets knows that this is a CSS file, okay? Mayland.css. And we're going to put all of our style into here, and we're going to take it out of these other pages, okay? So I'm going to go here first, and I'm going to say, all right, I'm just going to close this screen behind here. Now I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to the style section, and in fact on page 1 I am going to just delete it. I'm not even going to use it, because we know as we've progressed through the videos, video 3 was the one that has the latest section of style and the one that we like the most. So I'm just going to highlight that section of style, and I'm literally just going to press delete. So it's gone. So now our whole web page is really 25 lines long. It doesn't even need to be that long. If you took out these blank spaces, our whole web page is 22. Take out some blanks, maybe 20 pages, 20 lines long. It's really quite easy, right? So we've taken that style out. Then we're going to go to page 2, and we're going to delete all of that style, because I don't want any of that style either. So I'm just going to go to there, hit delete. Delete all of that. Now we've got our second page, and it's pretty much ready to go. And now we're going to go to page 3. I'm just going to save that, go to page 3. Now this style is the latest. This is the one that we've been using. This is the layout that we like. So we're going to actually copy this one. In fact, I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to go Command X on my Mac. I'm going to go down to Mayland CSS, and I'm going to go Command V and paste it. Now there's my style. The only thing is I don't need these style tabs in here. So I'm just going to delete that one. And I'm going to delete that one, And so now we've got it. There we go. We've put all of our style into one folder, and we're going to use that one same style for all of the pages that we've got. So I'm just going to save that. Now the problem is we've put all of this style into this mainland.css, but there's no way telling this web page where to go and get the style from, right? So we need to have some sort of relationship between this web page and with the style sheets. So what we're going to do is we're going to write one line of code. It's a really simple line of code, and it is a link, and we're going to put this inside the head section still, right? So start off with this bracket, and I write link. There we go. Now, before I close the end of the link, I want to finish writing what we're going to have in this link. Now, we want it to have a relationship, REL, a relationship with a different file. And the type of file that we want it to have a relationship with, sorry, that should be an equals, is we want it to have a relationship with a style sheet. There we go. You can see brackets helps you by putting the words in. So we want it to have a link relationship with a style sheet. So that's good so far. Now, what type of file am I going to give it? The type of file I'm going to give it is a text file. And the text file is going to be text CSS. And you can see, again, brackets gives it to me. So I just, whoops, just delete that. Right, I'm just going to click on that. Text, right, CSS, good. That's the type of file that I want to have. Close my inverted commas, good. And then we need to have a reference as to how to get to that file, right? So if you remember, we have a hyperlink reference, and we're going to say it's going to go to, and what's the file going to be called? It's going to be called mainland.css, and then we close that link bracket. Now, you'll notice when we do this, the link isn't a tag that has a beginning and an end, has two tags, it's just by itself. It's an individual one, similar to an image, right? So it just has the link in there to the style sheets. The style type is text.css, and the reference is mainland.css. So that line there, that one line there, we've taken out maybe 20 lines out of the website, and we've put one line in, which is going to link us to the style sheets. I'm just going to copy that line, save this page. I'm going to go to index 2, and inside the head, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, paste it into there. So now it's linked to the same style sheets, save that, go to here, paste it into here, and it's linked to the same style sheets. Now, if you remember, our first page had green buttons with a white background, and our second page had green, well, maybe yellow, and our third page had yellow. Now, all of them will be the same, right? Now, they might be in slightly different positions at the moment, but at this stage, all of the buttons should be exactly the same color. So let's have a bit of a check of that first. That's a good way to see if our style sheets have worked or not. Okay, so this is page 1. Doesn't have green buttons anymore. Now it's got a yellow buttons down here. So that looks like that's still worked, and the buttons have still got rollovers, hovers, and they still seem to have worked. You'll also notice that the background has changed to red. It was green on our first page, but because we're using the same style all the way through, the style sheet we used had a red background. So now that's red. Let's check out page number 2. It should have a red background with yellow buttons. Let's check it out. Okay, now this one's got a picture that covers the page, but remember what I said, if you move it quick, you should be able to see, there we go, it's got a red background in behind it with yellow buttons. Okay, so the style sheet is working on this page as well. And let's check the third page here. Let's refresh that, jump back over here, and it has a red background with yellow buttons. Okay, so the style is consistent across all 3 pages. It's got a link at the top inside the head, which links to those style sheets. Now let's just prove that we're right. I just want to make sure that we are actually right, okay? So I'm going to go into here, and I am going to go to the style sheet, and we've got our body color, and I'm actually going to change our body color to black. So our actually not to change it black, let's change it to something where we can still see the writing. Let's go blue, say, just to start with, so that we can save that. Now let's just test and see if that worked. So I've only changed it once. Here's the first page previewing. Wow, the blue background's worked, right? Let's go to the next page. Yep, look, it's got a blue background. So the one change in one style sheet is now affecting 3 different pages. Okay, so let's go back into the style sheet here, and I would like to make these buttons green again, or maybe black. Let's go back to green because then it matches the car. All right, so let's put green in there. Down here where it's yellow, I'm going to put green back in here. Yep, and then I'm going to put green down here. So now we have a bit more consistency that we've got our buttons are all going to be green across 3 different pages. Save that, go back. Here we go, we've got green rollovers. Now we've got red writing. Now I don't want that red writing, I want it to be white, all right? So we're going to go back here, find out where the writing was red, which is, let's have a bit of a look. That's right, that's the wrong section, button. Here we go, color, then we want that to be white. Okay, so now we've saved that, and that'll be the same for each page. Hit refresh. Right, black with green with white buttons, green with white. Great. So now we've got that starting to go right. Now on the 3rd page at the end of the last video, we moved the buttons to the top left-hand corner. We gave them a class. We called it head button, and we've had 2 buttons here. Right, it was index and index 2. Now we are going to have 4 pages by the end of today. So I am going to copy that. I'm going to hit return. I'm going to paste that in there, so that gives me a 3rd button, and that's going to give me a 4th button. Now, obviously, home is going to be our first page. Button 2, page 3, page 4. So now we've got 4 buttons. Index, index 2, index 3, and then this one is going to become index 4, which we haven't created yet, but it's going to be our 4th page, our index 4. Now, I like this button layout. I like it up in the top left-hand corner. I like on page 3, when we have a look at page 3, there we go, we've got 4 buttons up there. I like that layout. So I like it so much that I want to have that on every page. So I'm going to copy that entire div, including the head button thing. I'm just going to go Command C and copy that. I'm going to go back to page 1. I'm going to delete this button section down here. I'm just going to highlight that and just delete it. I can even delete those 2 breaks because we don't need them now because they're not breaking to anything. And I'm going to go inside the body, right at the top, right there, Command V. I've put my sets of buttons in, and now they'll be in the top left-hand corner at the top of the first page. Now, I want to do the same for the 2nd page. As soon as we go into body, I want to have my class right there for my head buttons right there. Now remember, this one's already got a different class up here as well, which puts the background image, the full screen background image in. That doesn't matter, my buttons will still be in the right position. Page 3, you can see, there you go, it's got the same class and it's got the buttons in the right spot. So now let's have a look. We've cleaned up the files a little bit. Let's start on page 1, preview that. Here we go. Now, there we go. We've got our buttons up in the top left-hand corner. The rest of the page is the way that page 1 was. We hit page 2, buttons in the top left-hand corner. Fantastic. We forgot to delete these 2. I'll go and do that in a minute. But you can see the buttons look good. Let's go to page 3. Buttons look good. Page looks good. It's a bit more consistent now. And we haven't got a page 4 yet, so it can't access page 4. So let's go back and delete those other buttons on page 2. We go to here. We highlight these 2 lines. We hit delete. We've got rid of those. We get rid of the 2 breaks. We don't need them. And we're starting to get somewhere. Okay. Now, I also like the full size image in the background. So I'm going to copy this class, Command C, inside the body. I'm going to go to page 1 and I'm going to put inside the body there. I'm going to put the same class and I'm going to delete the image off the here because we've now got a full screen picture in the background. Now let's check out those pages now. They should be much more consistent right now. Okay, let's check out page 1, preview that. Okay, now look at what we've got. We've got the full screen picture that moves and moves with the sizing of the screen. We've got the buttons locked in position, button 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're starting to get this stuff. Go to page 2, it should look nearly the same, which it does, right? It's got the same sort of features, same sort of thing in here. Now we're getting consistency, and then we have page 3. Page 3's got this faded box in it. Now obviously you're not going to have page 1, 2 and 3 exactly the same. You're going to have different things in, different content in. So you might have a picture in on page 2 or something different. But what I'm showing you, the purpose of today's video is to show you the consistency with the CSS, how when you create a CSS file, that style in this one folder can then translate to 3 other different folders. That's why we're doing CSS, right? That's the reason that we're doing it all. Okay, now we want to create a 4th page. We want to create an index4.html. Let's go back to our desktop where we were before. Here we are. And we are going to hold down the Option key, drag index 3 down below. Remember, we have to rename it with no spaces. We're going to make it index 4 right there. So now we should have index 4, and it should be exactly the same as index 3. So I'm just going to open that up in brackets as well. And remember, we're doing this to show the progression, okay? I just want to keep showing you the progression of the way that it works. You may have noticed I just moved index 4 up there above the CSS. I just like to leave the CSS at the bottom so that if I make any changes on that, that can be there. But I'm always working on the websites at the top. That's the way my workflow is. That's the way I like to do it. Okay, now, at the moment on this 4th page, let's just preview it very quickly. One of the issues that we're having on the 4th page is that this writing here is now at 60% and the box behind it is at 60%. It's the white transparent box and it's got this black line behind it. So I've got an idea of a way to fix that so that the actual writing is not transparent. The writing will be okay. And one of the things I could do is I could create really simply just a new class and design the new class with the idea in mind of how I would like that box to look, and then it won't impact the writing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here and just for page 4, I'm going to leave page 3 as it is so that we can see the progression. I'm just going to do page 4. I am going to remove that writing class in there. I'm just going to leave it exactly like that, okay? Now, I don't need to remove it in here in our style sheets because it's still being used by index 3. So I can leave it in there, but for index 4, I've removed that class. I wanted to take it out. Okay, so what I want to do is I am going to create a div, okay? Now I'm going to create a div, I'm going to do it under the buttons. I'm going to do it about here, just a simple div. Remember, a division of the page, creating a div here, yep. And I'm going to close that div, which will then close it up. And in here, I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to call this, backtran. So this is going to be my transparent background on page number 4 that hovers around, and we can move it up and down and all those sorts of things, but the writing won't become transparent, right? So only part of the background will be transparent. So I'm just created a floating div. There's nothing in it. It's just like a container that's floating on the page that's divided up, but it hasn't got anything in it yet, okay? So now I'm going to save that. I'm going to go into my style sheets, and I better make a class. Now remember what I said, when you're doing a class, you start with a full stop, and we call it, what do I call it, backtran? Backtran, I just better make sure that's exactly what I called it. Yep, backtran, right? So I've created backtran, put in my braces, and now I'm going to put in some style for this. Now, I would like a white transparent box that goes from the hard left-hand side of the page all the way across the whole width of the page, and I want it to start halfway down the page, right? So I want it to start in the left position, so I start at left, and I want it to be at 0 pixels exactly, right? So I'm just going to put 0, semicolon. I do not want it, I want it to be hard up against the left-hand side, right? So that's why I put left. Then I want it to be from the top of the page, I think I want it to be 500 pixels down. So let's just say 500 pixels from the top of the page there. We can play with that and tweak that later to once we see how it looks. Now I want it to be the full width of the page, so I'm going to go width and 100%. We talked about this before. We want it to be 100% of the width of the page. I'd also like that box to be a minimum width, even if someone has a different width browser, I want it to be a minimum of say 1,000 pixels wide. So if you've got a low resolution screen that's a lot smaller, I've still got a minimum width for this box of 1,000 pixels, and I would say a minimum height of maybe, I don't know, 225 pixels. So it's got a certain depth to it, regardless of what browser you're in, regardless of what window you're in, it's going to have a certain depth to it. Now, we want it to be positioned, same as we did last week, last time we did the video. We want it to be positioned absolute. right? So I want it to be exactly where I place it. I don't want it to be anywhere else. I want it to be exactly where I place it. Now I also want to have a background color to it. So let's just put a background color, and this is where the white part comes in. Background, I'm going to write white. Now, I just want to show you this while we're doing background color white. You can use hexadecimal numbers in here. You do not have to use the word white. So in actual fact, if you know your hexadecimal numbers, or if you're a Photoshop person, you could actually put in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's 6. Yeah, I think it's 6. I'm going to put in 6 Fs, which will give me a perfect white background. Okay, so Fs, that's the hexadecimal way of writing white, right? Or the web color way of writing white. I'm going to just remove that and just write the word white because I know that still works. Okay. Now remember, we want this to be fairly transparent, so we're going to put the opacity at 0.6 and then semicolon. Right. So now what I've done, I've created in index 4, I've created a div with nothing in it, an empty box, and the empty box is called backtran. And when we go to our style sheets, we've styled the empty box to have a white background, 60% opacity, and to be in a fixed position. Okay, so we've made that style in our style sheet. So let's go and have a look at page number 4 and just check how that goes. Okay, so here it is. Here's this box, right? So you can see at the bottom of the page, we have this transparent box. We have it starting on the hard left-hand side. We have it so that, oh look, and there we go. We can even see it's got an exact height, okay? So it's not moving up or down or anything. It's just sitting there at the moment. But we have this transparent box sitting exactly where we want it. And the writing up here is still at full strength. It's not 60%. Just this little white section here is at 60%. So if we want to move that up to get it behind the writing, okay, so what we could do is we go to our style sheets and we could say instead of being 500 from the top, maybe we make it 200 from the top, save that, go back to our index, preview it again. Now when you're changing style sheets, sometimes you have to refresh the page. So there it is. So now we've got that box sitting there. It's in roughly the right position. Now it looks faded out, because what's actually happened here is the white box is at the front, right? So it's in front of this writing because we've done the writing and then after we've done the writing, we've created this white box and we've put it at the front. So what we might want to do is we might want to send this behind the writing that's there. So in our next video, what we're going to do is we're going to address the position of that white box that we just looked at, and we're going to go into style sheets and we're going to look at a way to put that box behind the writing that's there. So we've separated the two out, which is what we talked about at the end of video 3. We've separated the white box away from the writing. We've separated the two out. The next video, we're going to look at a way to put it behind it and also to make it dynamic so that it can scroll up and down the screen and the text will stay inside of it and those sorts of things. So we're going to have a look at that. We also might tweak the page a little bit more just to make it look a little bit better, but we're coming up to the end of this series of videos, but we'll get onto that in the next one.